Corp radio station. Listen online at KFMA.com. You want it? You got it. Reality radio done right. No nonsense, real and raw, just like you like it.
He's corrupt, he's inexperienced, and he lies.
Broadcasting from a broom closet in the Arizona Lotus Studios, it's Beef Vegan Presents. Wake up!
Yo, welcome back to the show. It's Beef Vegan Presents live on Rock 102.1 KFMA, streaming worldwide at KFMA.com on this beautiful Tuesday, August 8th. Good morning, Weirdo.
Good morning.
And good morning, Tucson. Thank you guys for tuning into the show. Man, we're jam-packed today. We have those tickets for Incubus. We're going to be giving away around 7 o'clock this morning. We have the signature heating and cooling Summer of Fun song of the day. What song you're listening for, when it's going to be played around 8 o'clock. It's Tuesday, so we're going to do another round of Tap Out Tuesday with Shane from Tucson Games and Gadgets. And in the 9 o'clock hour for the podcast broadcast, very special guest in studio. He is formerly the host of Headbangers Ball on MTV. Amongst many other accomplishments, accolades, and career milestones, Riki Rachtman is going to be in studio, and he is performing tonight at 191 Toole. I have a lot to talk about with Riki, who is formerly Axl Rose's best friend and was a part of that Sunset Strip hair metal explosion and scene. Like, this guy has seen some things, parties galore, and just a whole bunch of intimate moments with icons, really. And he is going around the country just sharing those stories. But before he shares those stories with his crowd tonight at 191 Toole, he'll share some with us on the podcast broadcast, as I have tons of questions, and I'm sure you do as well, Weirdo.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. I mean, that was my introduction to metal, was staying up till midnight. My parents didn't know, and just watching Headbangers Ball. Yeah. He's
going to be proud. He's like, yeah, I raised you. And then he's going to ask for a DNA test and be like, you sure I'm not your dad? We got a lot of similarities. Did your mom work at Circle K? So, that's going to be fun. And, and we have lots of stories to get to too, man. I was just going through the gram, and I saw our good friend, Kat Rumbley. She posted a story talking about the humidity and the heat combined in Florida, because she moved back to Florida.
Yeah.
Now, she grew up in Florida, right? But she's like, this isn't normal. Like, as she, with all the summers that she's gone and lived, she's like, it's just getting hotter and hotter. And then with 80% humidity, it's insane. It just makes you feel nuts. And that makes a lot of sense to me, because, we like to have fun and do like the Florida man story of the week or whatever. Usually I get a good 2 to 3 Florida man stories any given 7-day news cycle.
Right.
I kid you not, it's like 3 or 4 a day of like insane things happening out of Florida, individuals acting out. And, our morning one's going to be a Florida man, and we have a Florida man later on in the show if we get to it. But it's hard to even keep up with all the stuff that's happening in Florida. But it's not like we are unscathed here. A lot of times also doing the morning radio racket, we look at our friends in Australia and be like, oh, it's a good thing we're not living in Australia. Seems dangerous as hell, man.
Right.
Like everything there could kill you. Well, OG streamer Anthony sent me this link from KOLD yesterday, showing a snake in a toilet in Oro Valley. Look at this.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So you're going to see it on the podcast broadcast, but this is essentially a snake remover guy, and it's not like a rattlesnake. And I'll have to read through a little bit more to find out what kind of snake is, but it's terrifying. It's an all black snake. This dude just ballsy just grabs it with his bare hands, so it's not poisonous. But imagine you try to sit down and you see something like dark and curled up in your toilet. You just assume somebody else used the toilet and didn't flush.
Right?
Like, where's the toilet paper, sicko? But no, that was a snake, and he goes, it looks like a fake snake, and then you'll see it. Yeah, try to bite him.
Oh, God.
Yeah, look at it, weirdo.
No.
Stare at it. Now watch as it like hisses towards the camera. Yeah, there it is. Oh, yeah.
Oh.
That's terrifying. Just imagine that was
like. Oh, my
like,
God. And it's like down the hole, and like, it's not.
Yeah, it's a long ass snake, and this is in Oro Valley. Some poor woman went to go sit down to use the restroom and got freaked out by that. Imagine that thing biting your taint, huh? So
no, thank you.
According to Rattlesnake Solutions, who helped remove the snake, it took 3 visits over 2 days to remove the coach whip, which is a snake that was living in the toilet. So he couldn't use that bathroom for over 2 days. And then finally, when they did remove the snake, they did it by hand. See, I don't know if our, Tucson reptile, rattlesnake solutions are doing it right. I mean, I've seen other, reptile removing agencies, and they usually have some kind of claw or gloves. This guy reached it
barehanded it.
Barehanded. Now, for the snake itself, it's like, yeah, the snakes might bite your hand and you're not concerned about that. But what about putting on a glove before you reach your hand into a toilet, bro?
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that you're not afraid, but I'm afraid for you. I'm afraid to high five you, shake your hands. I'm afraid to see what doorknobs you're like touching and opening. Now, anyways, what they say, while rare, the owner said these things can happen. It's possible for the snakes to find their way into vaults and septic tanks and even be flushed from other homes. So it goes home to home.
Oh, God. It's viral.
Yeah, dude, yes. So, I mean, just imagine waking up to that. But shout out to Anthony for sending me that link. That's pretty funny. And you'll see the video if you don't go to KOOD.com on the podcast broadcast a little bit later on. But like I said, we have so much to get to. So let's kick it off with music. I'm going to go deep with Nirvana to kick things off. Highly Suspect after that. All right, let's go live. We got a very special guest. It's Rock 102.1 KFMA. You know the name of the show. Let's go. Since this show was announced to come to Tucson, it's 1 foot in the gutter. We were talking to a former host of Headbangers Ball, also so many other things, owner of the Cat House, and a staple of the Sunset Strip. When the Sunset Strip blew up on an international level, one and only Riki Rachtman. How you doing, Ricky?
I am doing wonderful, thank you. And you know what's sad? Sunset Strip is dead.
Is it dead now?
Hollywood's dead. I'm not gonna lie. Hollywood's just dead. It's sad. And you don't want to think that I was part of this incredible generation that's gone. And it's not just because I'm old, that I'm out of touch. It's like I still go to bands. I still see new bands, old bands.
Right.
I love seeing bands, but the whole music scene is just kind of dead.
And that is sad. And you do see scenes, they kind of they come and go, and there's you can't even pinpoint what makes a great scene, but there's a magic in the air that a collective when things happen. And look at Sunset Strip in the 80s, Seattle in the 90s. You see these kind of just meccas where musicians are together. You wouldn't even assume that like a bunch of timeless music would be made from a bunch of different groups of people all playing in a small couple block area.
And they were also like in the Bay Area had their thrash or New York City hardcore, and everybody would go support each other and see people. I mean, to get people to go out just to go to shows at all.
Yes.
It's like sad. It's like, get off your ass, go see a show.
Right.
Especially mine tonight.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to talk a lot about that because this 1 foot in the gutter tour, why'd you name it that, by the way?
I ended every single episode by saying, remember to keep 1 foot in the gutter, one fist in the gold. And that's something that I don't even remember when I came up with it, but I used to use it in like business cards. I always say 1 foot in the gutter, one fist in the gold, which is like, I'm always been going for like the best I could get, but I'm still from the street. I've still got my foot in the gutter. Sometimes I've got more than my foot in the gutter.
Yeah.
That's kind of where it came up with. And 1 foot in the gutter sort of tells the story of coming from the gutter and all these things happening that were great and then ending up back in the gutter, I guess. Yeah, I would say that tells the story.
Yeah, I like that story. We're talking with a former Headbanger Ball host, Riki Rachtman, and not only just Headbangers Ball, former Loveline host, former like radio. You made a weird transition from being like a club owner or bar owner, right, to and television personality to radio. It's usually the other way around, opposite way, right?
I had never had any intentions of, as the story goes, when you go to my show, I didn't have any intentions of being on TV, but it was Axl Rose that said, hey, you want me to call MTV and see if you could get a job on Headbangers? I'm like, yes, Axl. And then he's like, you want me to come to New York with you to audition? I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I had never been on TV before. And, for the first year or so on Headbangers Ball, it was obvious.
Yeah.
And maybe for the whole time on. But then that led to radio, which led to more TV and more radio. And it just, everything kind of picked up without that being the intentions. I didn't know. And sometimes you don't know where your life's going to go, but you just keep on following it and just keep on going for the best. And I've never, ever stopped hustling.
I know, and that's amazing, and it is a story of a hustler and somebody who just kept falling into opportunities, making the most of those opportunities. And Ricky's going to be performing tonight at 191 Toole. It's all part of his One Foot in the Gutter tour. Tickets available at 191toole.com. We're going to continue the conversation, have more with Ricky after Stained. You can join us youtube.com/beefvegan. It's a podcast broadcast. All right. And then we're back on just the podcast side. So, yes, it is an amazing and remarkable story. And what a great reference. You're talking Axel at his peak. He just calls up MTV and it's just like, yeah, I got the guy for you. And I'll come with them. Right. So they're not going to say no to Axel in any scenario. Right.
No, it's like, oh, well, it's all about who you know. I don't care.
Right.
I don't, if Axl Rose is going to help me get a job, hell yeah, I'm going to do it. I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, it's not like I didn't do anything myself, but yeah, it helped a lot. And the thing is that we do talk about in my show, we were a small knit family that everybody in our little group ended up getting record deals and everybody became rock stars except me. And to be at this stage of my career, and finally saying like, I'm on tour in a van, it's like, it's kind of cool. I really love it. I don't take it for granted at all.
No, that's well, first off, having that American adventure of all bands, they usually make their way up and they do the van tour. So they get to really see, just the road trips and all the different states. You take that in. That's part of the adventure. And part of the fun for sure. And I'm sure you're going to even absorb even more, learn even more about the country that we live in and come across a couple more stories along the way for sure.
Well, I've ridden my motorcycle coast to coast 15 times. I've raised a lot. One year I decided I was going to ride my motorcycle in 48 states and I did that. So I've seen all of it. This time, what I'm doing is eating a lot of food everywhere we go. It's like when we were in New Orleans, it's like, okay, 4 Cajun meals in a row. Yeah. And now in Texas yesterday, it's like just Tex-Mex. So it's like, it's like, oh, what have you gained the most of this tour? It's like about 15 pounds.
Yeah, weight. I've gained weight from this tour.
Yes.
Well, now that you're in Tucson, you have to hit Mexican food, period.
That's all we've been doing.
No, that's Tex-Mex. Okay, it's different.
Yes, I know that. I know that. I'm originally from Los Angeles, so I know that.
Right, exactly.
So where is the best Mexican food in Tucson?
Do you eat meat?
My wife does and everybody else does, but
you do not.
But I eat rice and beans.
Yeah, okay. Well, then the first option I would say is you eat fish?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's August. I never recommend a fish taco in August, right?
Yeah.
I think the rule is if it ends in a certain letter, I forget. If it ends in if it doesn't end in a vowel, I don't know what the rule is.
You mean the fish you get out here doesn't come straight from Tucson's ocean?
Correct.
Yeah. Well, it does. That's Rocky Point in Mexico. So, but even the water's too warm in the summertime. And I don't know if you ever been to the Baja, like if you go down to Tijuana, right?
Yeah.
On the inside in the Gulf, that water gets super warm. I don't mess with shellfish or fish during when it's like 115 degrees out.
I get that. I agree.
So would you say you're what? Like, was it pescatarian?
Pescatarian?
Yeah, where you just eat.
Nah, I don't know. It's just like I stopped eating pork a long time ago because I really like pigs. And then I just stopped eating red meat just kind of for the hell of it. And then I stopped eating all meat. Leah, how long ago? Just a couple months ago? And it's not like if I see a chicken or like I love fried chicken.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say I'm always going to be like this. I'm just trying it and just trying to see what it's like for me not to eat meat. Do I feel better? No. Have I lost weight? No. Has anything changed in my life? No, but I'm just trying. It's just like for the hell of it,
There's benefits. I think there's sexual health benefits of not eating meat.
Is that true, Leah? Oh, she doesn't know. Boy, that doesn't.
I wish I had a camera on her
my
face.
wife is next to me, so I'm always running it by her.
She made such a face, just shook her head. I don't know. How the hell am I supposed to know? Yeah, no, we've been married. We don't have sex. No. I'm just. So, how long you been doing this tour so far? Have you been to Australia already with this?
Yes.
How was that?
Okay, you got to understand. This idea I came up with about 10 months ago.
Okay.
I did one show and it was huge. I was like, oh my God. Then I got offered 4 more shows. Then I got offered 17 shows. And then I got offered 4 shows in Australia, which like blew my mind that I even got to go to Australia and do it.
Yeah.
And now we've got 4 shows left, and that's it.
Oh, wow. Nice.
That'll be like 40 shows I've done.
Wow.
I love it so much.
Yeah. Now that you've done it and you're completing your run, are you like tempted to try to do it again in a couple of years? Or
I don't know.
Yeah. So when you come up with this story, this show, essentially, it's a collection of stories and experiences that you had. How long did it take you to kind of piece them together to try to come up with the opening and all the way to the end?
Changing every show.
Yeah.
I started some chronologically about what it was like when I was growing up. And it's like almost a play. I take people into my room and I'm discovering, hard rock and heavy metal for the first time and meeting rock stars and opening the Cat House. And then, it's a lot of sex, a lot of drugs, a lot of rock and roll, rags to riches to rags to riches. I mean, I've had ups when I was making, great 6 figures and then completely bankrupt like 6 months later.
Yeah.
Because I went to jail. I mean, I've done some crazy, crazy things. And I tell those stories. And I also show some behind the scenes clips from Headbangers Ball and talk about certain people that have, some people say it's inspirational. Some people say it's hilarious. But I've never had anything that I've ever done that's gotten as great reviews as this has, which makes me feel good because it's so personal.
Yeah, it's personal, it's honest, and I think that's what a lot of people are being receptive to.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about everything, and it's just been. I've had so much fun doing this.
I mean, that's where the best stories come from, is when you're being honest, and especially with all of the people you interact with. Like, I do want to hear about the Pantera stories with like Dimebag and Vinny. Like,
I've got clips that I just recently found of us hanging out backstage. And the thing about my show is like, look, I'm not going to mention certain rock stars that have written these books, but most of them are just bull.
Yeah.
And everything I say on that stage, I guarantee is 100% true. And there's certain stories, I'm not going to say who they're about, but they ended up being far better than the story I told because they told me, the one about John 5, for instance. That was a pretty crazy story. And he's like, dude, that's not the whole story. And then they tell me more and more. So every time I go to these shows, the really weird show is the last shows that I do is going to be in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the people that are in the stories are going to be sitting there. Oh, God. Like, I'm like, yo, is that really what happened, Tammy? Or is that really what happened? All these, how do I talk about, Stephen Piercy allegedly doing coke in the balcony? I'm like, is that right? Is that what happened? I mean, I'm just making that up. I can't say that he ever did that. I'm not going to say that he didn't, but I'm not going to say that he did either. But it's like, there's a lot of people, and there's people that are intertwined in these stories. There's names that are mentioned that you would never guess in a million years are in some of these. You're like, okay, there's not a chance that I knew that this story was going to go this way or that way.
Right. Yeah. And did you grow up in Los Angeles area, right?
I grew up in Hollywood.
Yeah,
I lived in Hollywood pretty much my whole life until, I guess, 7 years ago. I moved to North Carolina.
Isn't it weird how it's kind of still like a very small town, even though it's a huge city? You get in, it's almost, once you get into the entertainment industry, it's almost incestuous, and there's so many people that you wouldn't even assume know each other, interact, or kind of are all mixed together in a very small pool.
Not as good as it was. It was a community. We had a great rock community that we'd always go see our bands, our friends' bands, and we'd always go to the same supermarket, and we'd always go to the same, liquor store. But now it's not like that. It's just dead. It's a ghost town. There's no life on the Sunset Strip. And I got sick of going up to people and say, hi, I'm Ricky. And they're like, hi, what do you do? Instead of where I live now is in North Carolina, where it's like, hi, who are you?
Yeah.
Like, they don't care what you do.
Right.
They're, and where we live, me being me and my wife being a tattoo artist. And we live in this small town where, not that small really, where people don't necessarily look like either of us.
Yeah.
Nobody cares,
Nice.
So it's kind of, it's really nice. We love where we live.
Do you feel like you're welcomed in that community? Because you got the, what is it, purple mohawk, you're all tied up and sleeved, and your wife's tattoo artist. Yeah. And you go into like a rural, like
Mooresville, North Carolina.
Nice.
Yes, we
beautiful
love,
traditional like Southern town.
Oh my God, we love where we live, and I was wondering how it was going to be, but the whole Leah would know better than I would, but the tattooing thing is different than it was. Like when we were getting tattooed, you'd walk into a market and it's like, ooh, that's a bad person. Now you walk into a tattoo and it's like, oh, that looks like my school teacher's neck tattoo.
Yeah, exactly.
Or in my case, I walk into a convenience store and they're like, oh, let me touch. No, don't. It's not Braille. Don't touch me.
Right.
We're talking with Riki Rachtman, who's performing tonight at 191 Toole for the 1 Foot in the Gutter tour. We're going to keep the conversation moving on the podcast broadcast. Be back with more after music from Beck. It's Rock 102.1 KFMA. All right, there we go. And clear. So you can get to cursing too. And I have to take out.
No, I feel like I didn't just curse just then.
No, you're good.
Okay.
And I have a dump anyways, if you did. And it does happen because we are like, we do seamlessly kind of flow in and out. So it's easy to get comfortable.
You don't forget which one.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes I forget. I have to keep
I
checking.
spent so much time doing radio that I kind of got used to it. But on stage, I don't know why. When I'm on stage, I swear a lot. And I didn't even notice it, but it's like everyone's fucking.
Yeah. Of course, you've been an MC at many shows as well, and arenas and tours. Actually, I did thoroughly enjoy when I was living in Phoenix your NASCAR weekend show, which I didn't think I would, but I thought that tie-in was actually pretty good.
That was my idea.
Yeah, nice.
I love NASCAR and I love rock and roll. And I'm like, what if I do a rock and roll show, but I talk about racing the way I talked about rock and roll? And I did that show for 20 years.
Yeah, that's a huge run. Congratulations on that, too.
Well, I don't do it anymore.
Yeah, no, but yeah.
But 20 years, that's nothing to sneeze at.
Which is really weird then I think about it because it doesn't seem like it. And before I did that, I was bankrupt and selling cars.
Oh, you really?
Yeah.
And so when you were selling cars, did you come up with the idea to tie in a NASCAR with music? Because
no, when I was selling cars, I was trying to think of anything I could do to make ends meet, to keep the power, because the power was turned off in my apartment. I was flat broke. And I'm like, I got to do something. And I keep on, I'm a hustler. I keep on thinking of ideas and some of them work and some of them don't. But the whole Racing Rocks thing worked. And I found a way to get myself into NASCAR because there was nobody like me in NASCAR.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. And it continues to become more mainstream. And probably just that helped in that. So would you say that, when you were selling cars and everything, was that kind of like the rock bottom financially, maybe?
I've had a lot of drug rock bottoms, because I was addicted to meth and stuff like that.
But you've been sober like 30 plus years?
35.
Yeah, 30. Congratulations.
Thank you. But I'm not, I always like to explain this. I have been sober 35 years. And when I even went to UCLA, I was going to become a drug counselor, but I'm not that guy. Like, it really pissed me off when Nikki Sixx was like, alcohol should be illegal. I'm like, really? It's like, look, I'm buying drinks for people. I like it when people drink. I just can't do it because I do bad things when I do it. But I have no problem. If I look out at an audience and I'm playing at 191 Toole and there's like a couple people that have been having some beers and having a good time, we're going to have a blast.
Absolutely.
I just can't do it because I do stupid things and I'll keep on going until I die. So that's just me. But the crazy thing is I just made this little video the other day on Facebook and talked about sobriety and it got 500,000 views. I'm like, and then everybody's like, hey, I have this problem. I'm like, it's cool because that stuff helps me. But and I talk about drugs and alcohol and stuff like that in my show, but it's not preaching. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. And, I could see, and especially during the time and era that you grew up being a club owner and then also in the rock scene during the age of excess as well, it's very easy to fall into those traps. And before you know it, you're just partying. And next thing you know, you're addicted, right? I'm sure you've seen this happen amongst your friends and community time and time again during that era as well.
I've had a lot of friends die.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of friends die. And it was, there's one thing I'll tell you, one thing I talk about in my show is that, there was a time that I was doing like a lot of meth. And there was a short time that me and Axl were doing meth and Slash said to me, he's like, look, before we go on tour, you guys shouldn't be doing this. And I was like, okay, how much drugs do you have to do to you're thought of as a bad influence on Guns N' Roses? It's like, so Slash is telling me that I'm a bad, it's like, if you're a bad influence on the most notorious rock and roll band of all time, you got to be real bad.
Right. Yeah. So, were there like the rumors and reputation true as far as Guns N' Roses in their heyday?
Oh my God. Let me tell you something. Okay. Axl Rose back in the day was a badass without a doubt. You did not want to cross Axl because he would tear you to shreds. They were the most dangerous band. They were phenomenal. And none of that whole drunk, crazy kicking off stage was contrived or made up. It was true. And to see the way that Slash and Duff are now is amazing. I mean, nobody has changed more in rock and roll than Slash and Duff.
Yeah. Yeah, they're like responsible. I talked with Slash not too long ago, and
He's the best.
Yes, super sweet and well spoken, and and he could have went the opposite direction. He could have sounded like Ozzy, for sure.
If he went the other direction another year, he would have been dead.
Wow.
He was so bad in drinking.
Yeah.
And I mean, we all were. That was what we all came from the gutter.
Yeah.
And everybody went to better, bigger things.
How did you open up Cat House and get that going with like the finances and everything, and then it became like the place to be amongst people?
I talk about that in my show with a lot of crazy photos, and it honestly was me and my roommate Tammy, who's the singer Faster Pussycat. Pure and simple, we wanted a place to get free drinks and meet strippers, and that was the only reason it was made up. So I found a rundown disco that was dangerous. I mean, you would walk in and your feet would go through the stairs.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, if I get people there, you guys make the bar, I make the door. I started with the finances that it took to open the Cat House was enough to make a flyer. I started with nothing.
Nice.
And then it got bigger and bigger and bigger.
That's just hustling. I love it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then when you met the boys in Guns N' Roses, I mean, you're friends with many bands, right?
Right.
Guns N' Roses, obviously, being the band that had the most success. Yeah. When you met them, they were still kind of like a local level.
They didn't have a record deal yet.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah. And then you buddy up with them pretty quickly. And just, was it one of those kind of kismet things where you just personalities meshed?
I think so. I mean, I talk about it in my show, but the way I got the job on Headbangers Ball was Axel set up the audition for me.
Yeah.
That was what, so yeah, it helped. And I think so. I mean, we were a small community and I always liked them because my background goes back to early punk rock. And I always thought that Guns N' Roses had that punk rock attitude, which I liked so much.
Yeah. And they did. They were kind of those rebels. And obviously, people were drawn to that because they're dangerous. And that was a part of rock and roll. Then the gangster rap era came in, kind of took that danger and, kept riding that wave. And it took a while for bands to get dangerous again. Now, where was your favorite venue that you've seen a Guns N' Roses show? Because I know that you've seen probably 1,000 shows of theirs. But the good thing about live music is sometimes it's almost like church-like, right? It's spiritual. You get those
best Guns N' Roses performance, and this is according to their manager at the time, Alan Niven, was October 10th, 1989 at the Cat House. And that was the night that they also filmed the It's So Easy video. And I have a segment about that night because there's some things that happened that night that are absolutely mind-blowing, that are hilarious. And you might have heard of stories, but there are some things that happened October 10th, 1989 at the Cat House that are historic and don't really have anything to do with a band playing. And I talk about that in my show.
Nice. I love that. And, and I want to talk about that on the air here after Metallica, talking about your show and how you incorporate pictures and videos and things. So, yeah. Now, what were some of the other bands besides Guns N' Roses that you were buddy bands with and that you were just massive fans with and part of that scene?
Name them. I mean, anybody. At first, it was just the people that came from the LA scene, but then it was like Alice in Chains were hanging out there all the time. And obviously, Lemmy from Motorhead had a huge influence on my life. But to say like who played it, I mean, Megadeth played at the Cat House, Alice in Chains with Pearl Jam opening, Rob Zombie. I mean, basically every single band that you can think of that era played at the Cat House, even when they were huge. I mean, they were big. It's like when Body Count was banned, I gave them they played LA.
Nice.
It's just, I mean, Alice Cooper. The list is endless. And
Right.
we were set up to be a rock and roll dance club, but then just all these bands wanted to play, and it was crazy.
So did you have to build out the stage and build the sound system and stuff just to accommodate them? Or?
We'd rent a little stage and we'd have somebody bring in a sound system. I mean, it was really very grassroots in this big room. And, it had this reputation of the type of women that would go to the Cat House that we
Right.
didn't set out to have that. It just happened.
What, the strippers? I mean, isn't that
Yes.
what you kind of set out for? That was exactly what you set out for.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I
So
mean, but
if you
story
build
that
it,
they said, well, after a while, it got to look like that the girls at the Cat House all looked like they were strippers and porn stars because they were
they're strippers and porn stars. Yeah. They had their resumes.
And
with
that's
them.
not something, because that would seem very cheesy to go after that. Like, I'm going to create a club with the hottest chicks. Like, dude, what kind of scumbag says something like that? but it happened, and I don't know how it happened, but it helped because then you've got Robert Plant and Steven Tyler all coming to the Cat House. I mean, Robert Plant was there for like he walked up to the bar, grabbed a girl, left.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was like, oh man, I would have liked to talk to Robert Plant.
Do you get scared off? You a little
What?
scared off?
I don't know.
I maybe they were the women there were too old.
No, no. But there were like friends. I'll give you an example. The Cat House, we had rules that like you couldn't bring a camera and you couldn't bug anybody. One night, Depeche Mode did an in-store on the Sunset Strip and it turned into a riot. So the guys in Depeche Mode just came into the Cat House and nobody bugged them all night. They were just walking around because nobody cared. I mean, we had celebrities, we had everything. Nobody cared at the Cat House, and it was incredible.
Did you set up like a VIP room? So these more well-known celebrities could have some privacy and still party.
The thing was, I was the guy that was never allowed in VIP rooms, so that's why they've always pissed me off. But I opened up another club called Bordello, and that we would let we call them VFIs, and we would just let the people that were like very important come in because I wanted a club that the celebrities could hang out with everybody else and nobody would care, and that's why it's like, dude, I'm sitting there, and meanwhile this guy's doing coke on the bar, and I'm not going to say, but we set it up. Yeah, we'd have little rooms that people could hang out in, but really not, because the whole place was like kind of like a VIP bar, but we never did that red velvet rope. It's like, you're cool, you come in. It's like, I was a person that didn't get in. So I wanted every scumbag. You wait in line, you're getting in the Cat House.
Nice. Yeah.
And that's kind of the way it worked.
Nice.
And it worked out great.
That is awesome. Yeah, it worked out so great that actually business owners from around the world kind of copy the brand and open Cat House in different areas.
Well, I did open up a Cat House in Arizona. I did it in Tempe for a few times, but
it was like a traveling bar.
I
though, right?
did a little tour once, but it always stayed in. It was really a Hollywood thing. I mean, at cathousehollywood.com, we still sell Cat House shirts worldwide,
right?
Which is really cool. And you look and you'll see like, oh my God, there's that band, which is a new band that you'll see like wearing Cat House shirts, and it's really, really cool because that's a company that I own 100% of, and I've always held on to that brand because I don't want it to be like, Affliction or Ed Hardy or anything like that.
Right, yeah.
Super commercialized.
Oh, it's vintage. It's part of an era. It's historic. It's cool. It was associated with the Cool Kids Club back in that time at peak. That's a beautiful thing. Now, tonight, the One Foot in the Gutter tour with Riki Rachtman and at 191 Toole is not only just like a show where Riki is sharing different stories, but you also have the receipts to back them up, right? Mm-hmm. So you do you show pictures and videos during this show as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of videos in the show. There's a lot of photos in the show. Sometimes it's me telling the story. Sometimes it's almost like a play, me bringing you back to a time when I was a kid. And I bring everybody else on this. It's really hard for me to explain, but I bring everybody on this journey with me. Some of it's really, really funny. Some of it, there's stuff that I have never told anybody, but for some reason I feel comfortable on stage. And it's stuff that's very, very humiliating. But I like it. I mean, that's why I like playing like at a place like 191 Toole. It's not a big place, and originally we were scheduled to play at the Marquee. I'm like, I can't play the the Rialto Theater. I'm like,
which is the equivalent.
I'm like, I can't play at a place that fits 700 people because, I want to be at a smaller place because it's easier to fill for one.
Yeah.
And because I like to see everybody in the audience.
Right.
It feels like you're coming in, you're sitting down on the couch, and we're just going to tell stories and show you some funny things and have a really good time. And that's what we've been doing. And and I want everybody to go tonight because it's going to be a really, really good time.
Yeah. 191 Toole that's probably one of my favorite venues now in Tucson because it is really intimate. And I've seen some really good bands that have traveled through. But did you have help writing this or did you just put this all together? And
no, pretty much what I did. I mean, I've written every single word. I've edited all the videos. Nice. I've produced the show. And what I usually do is I'll sit there and I'll stand in front of Leah and say, hey, and I'll tell her the story. And she just sits there and listens over and over and over again. And then I change it while I go. I'm like, oh my God, I said this and people went crazy. I'm going to do this. Mm-hmm. But I've done all of this myself.
Nice.
Yeah, you got to be proud of that too. I mean, just building this up. Right. And how long did it take you to put it all together with videos?
No, I think it's still changing. Like there's certain parts I'm like, hey, let's take this video out and put in this. And wouldn't it be funny if we made everything look like evil with fire and pentagrams at this part? And wouldn't it be great if this was kind of like humorous and would have been? So it took few months, but I'm still working. It's always a work in progress because in Tucson, I'm going to have a different story than I'm going to have in, New Orleans.
Right.
Mhm.
Now, did you put a book together yet? I mean, it
Nope.
sounds like a book.
I know that's what I can't sit down to write. So this is a book. This is
Okay.
me telling, but I think what I'm going to do is when the tour ends is I'll sit down and I'll really start to write the book. The big thing is the reason that I didn't write a book is I wasn't sure that it was going to be the book for me to say like, oh, and this is what happened with Poison when they were at this bar. It's
Like a
that's
gossip
not my
book. You don't want it to be a
Yeah.
gossip book.
Right.
Hell no. But I want to talk about what it was like being addicted to drugs and dating porn stars and seeing and losing everything. I wanted to talk about, getting in fights and going to jail and everything, but coming from me, not some journalist saying, oh, and this person did that. Because I've read stories in other books that involve me. I'm like, that's not what happened at all.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if they wanted the dirt, the grit, the struggles. And then I tell them on stage and people seem to enjoy it. So I'm like, okay, that's going to be the premise of the book.
Look, man, yeah, you lived a hell of a life and still living a hell of a life, but your stories, ups, downs, highs, lows, all the way around is your story, and it's a very unique one that you should be proud of, that you survived to even tell, right? So yes, absolutely, and sure, there's cameos from celebrities in your stories in your life, but you should definitely at least transcript your shows and then be able to bang it out because it sounds like an interesting tale.
That's the plan after the Hollywood show and we go back. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend some time and see if I can stay focused long enough to sit behind a computer and write a book. Cause I just get like, oh, look, there's let's go on a motorcycle ride. Let's go. Let's make a s'more. I don't know.
Do you recall what the most egregious thing said about you was? Like one of these stories, whether it's gossip in like a TMZ or something that you read. What's the most outrageous, unbelievable, non-true thing you've seen about yourself?
When it comes to that I had a relative that owned MTV, that I had somebody put up a lot of money to own the cat house. I started everything. What, Leah? You thinking when?
David Lee Roth.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Listen to this.
All right.
So you got time for a real quick story?
Absolutely. Let's go.
So I'm sitting there, right? And David Lee Roth is on Joe Rogan's show. And David Lee Roth is like, well, Riki Rachtman, his parents are bikers. And they used to own this biker bar called the Rock Corporation. And that's where we started at Riki Rachtman's parents' bar. It was a gnarly, notorious biker bar. There's none of that true. I remember growing up in Van Nuys and riding my bicycle by that bar, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm a biker. I've always have been, but my mom's a school teacher. It's like, and for David Lee Roth, it's like, please build that story up that my parents are bikers. That's a way cool story.
Yeah, that's credibility.
It's David Lee Roth I'm sitting there and I'm like, what? Like, where did he get that? But it's David Lee Roth. I'm like, yeah, let's just go with that story, David Lee Roth.
That's so funny too, because it's David Lee Roth on one of the biggest platforms. So a lot of people probably know this is gospel or think this is gospel. And when they see you, now you're a second generation biker. So the cred, it just grew.
Yeah, but I'm closer to that than being any similarity with a school teacher and a principal.
Yes.
So it's just like I read that, I'm like, where in the world did you get that? But let's just not tell anybody it's not true.
We're keeping the conversation moving with Riki Rachtman here on a podcast broadcast, youtube.com/BeFegan. Again, that show is 191 Toole tonight. You're going to hear so many stories, also see pictures and videos of Ricky's incredible life. And the doors open at 7, shows at 8, 191toole.com for ticket information. Don't walk up and find out that it's sold out. Get your tickets now. We have more coming up next. BeFegan presents, so don't go away. Yeah, we got people asking on the stream as well, all that information. So I just recapped it for you real quick.
Yeah, and we have VFI passes, and there's just a couple left. But if you go to Cat House Hollywood, you can get those and then just come early and hang out with me and hang out with.
Type that in there, weirdo, please.
Yeah.
So because I get people asking and curious. So were you good buds with David Lee Roth?
I knew him, but I never hung out with him. And I hosted the grand opening of Cabo Wabo, but that was when Sammy was in the band. But David came to my clubs. John 5 met David Lee Roth at Bordello, and that's how John 5 ended up working with him. It's like I hear stories about people meeting each other at my clubs. I was like, wow, like I didn't even know that stuff.
Yeah. Now I know you've scrapped with people in the past and stuff. Who's the most famous person you ever punched in the face?
It'd be easy. Are we on? Are we on?
No,
right
it's
now?
This
podcast.
is
Yeah,
podcast.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a better story. Who is the most famous person that punched me in the face? And I'm not going to say it on I'm not going to say it on this podcast right now because I say it in the show and it's embarrassing every time I say it. But it's a really good story.
Do you think you deserved the punch?
It was in a boxing ring.
Okay.
Oh,
okay.
okay.
Yeah. All right. That's
Yeah.
good. Yeah. In a box.
But I don't know I don't think I've ever hit anybody famous. I don't think anybody famous has ever hit me except that one time. But no, I don't. I mean, I'm not. Look at me. I'm not a tough guy. I'm not a. I mean, I've gotten fired for fighting, but no, I don't think I've ever. What? Who did I hit? What? Oh, Slash fell down the stairs. Oh, Slash broke my jaw. That's
Slash broke your jaw.
Yeah, Slash broke my jaw.
How do you forget about that, dude? What? Yeah.
Slash
What?
broke my. I don't remember everything. So I have Leah Vendetta, who's
Yeah.
on the show Ink Master, is my wife.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
she's
Leah, you want to jump in on this
Yeah,
mic?
jump
You
in,
can.
Leah.
You join us. We're having fun here.
She's
Look
the
at-
prettiest one of the group. By
Absolutely.
far.
Please
Not mentioning you, Weirdo.
Oh, thank you.
Weirdo, you are very beautiful as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm a 7.
Well,
That's fine.
I gotta go. I can
Beef.
die happy now. The man that
Beef.
introduced me to metal just said I was pretty.
Beef, you're handsome in your own way.
Yeah, thank you. My way.
But yeah, what she was saying is we had this picnic and Slash was rolling down the hill and I'm like, what is that rolling down the hill? And it was Slash and his boot came up and hit me in the jaw and I was so messed up on drugs that I didn't even know until my whole face swelled up and I went to the hospital. I broke my jaw and I said, I think, dude, remember when you broke my jaw? I didn't break your jaw. I'm like, dude. So Slash, good one, Lee. I didn't forget about that.
Yeah, that's so. How long did you have to wire your jaw shut and everything? or-
No,
Oh.
it all swelled up and they put this like hose in it because my whole face had filled up with infection and they put this hose in it. I'm thinking it was so disgusting. Then I had to walk around with this hose draining my jaw. But I was so messed up on drugs and alcohol that I didn't know. And I had to walk around with a hose draining my jaw for the longest time.
Jesus,
Oh my
for the longest time.
God.
You're talking months.
No, like
All right.
days. But
Still though.
Oh
that
my
seems like an
God.
walking
eternity.
around with a hose coming out of your neck.
Oh my God. Like, okay, so I'm sitting next to you and you have all these stories of like, because there's this conversation like
None of these stories are even in my show.
That's good. That's good.
well, so my boyfriend and I, we both like listen to metalcore, metal, and I think it was Josh Todd from Buck Cherry saying like rock is no longer dangerous, right? Like you don't hear these stories anymore. And you were literally in the middle of it. So would you agree that like you said, Sunset Strip, all that's kind of dead? Like, do you think rock is still dangerous? Do you think it's still
Incidentally, Josh Todd was playing in a band called Sparrow that played at the Cat House for their first time.
oh there
Nice.
you
But anyways, I think the bands I don't think are as dangerous. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I love a lot of the music from my era,
Mhm.
but I see a lot of newer, heavier bands. I'm probably into more heavy music than I was back then.
go? Okay.
But as far as dangerous, it's just the lifestyle wasn't dangerous. I mean, is it dangerous in the pit of, Lamb of God? Yeah. But I
Yeah.
mean, Randy Blythe is one of the, and Mark Bourne, they're one of the sweetest guys in the
Right.
world, so I don't think the danger is there because we were all living on this edge where we could have died and we
Right.
were all broke. So we were just doing whatever it took to make it. So I don't think the danger is there. I think the danger in the music is there,
Okay.
which I think is good. I like to see bands that I'm like, whoa, and I stand back and I'm like, this is incredible. I love going to see new bands. I love experiencing, when I go to see bands that I've never seen live before and they do something different and unique. It's like, wow, like I remember it. I don't go to like when you were a kid and you saw Eddie from Iron Maiden walk around, you go, that's a man in a rubber costume,
Yeah.
So me being an old guy, if I go see a Mon Martha, I'm like, oh yeah, they're really Vikings. You know?
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
I mean,
right.
that's what I still go to shows with that youthful joy that I had when I was younger, because that's the only way to go to rock concert. I'm not in LA. Everybody sits here with their arms folded. Oh yeah, impress me. Like screw that. If I go to a show, I'm going to have fun. I'm out of pit retirement because I'm fragile and I'll break.
Yeah.
But I stand outside of the pit and I love going to see bands, especially like metal bands.
Mhm. And you're talking about you're like into a lot of heavier stuff now. Like who's coming to mind that's newer in the last 10 years?
Okay, they're not really heavy, but they're really good. A band called Unto Others. And they're
Mm.
like metal, but almost have like a new romantic feel. I love Lamb of God. I love Amon Amarth. I love Municipal Waste. I'm trying to think of some other bands that I'm listening to. I mean, I mean, they're not new, but I like Hatebreed and I like all that stuff. I mean, I'm not thinking of a lot of stuff right now, but I really liked Every Time I Die when they were still playing. And geez, I'm gonna get booked on the Headbangers Boat, which is like Lamb of God, Mastodon, Guar, all these bands, and I like. But on the same token, one of the best shows I went to was My Chemical Romance. Oh my God, I love that band.
What, did you go at
Everybody-
the Forum at their last?
I saw it in North Carolina.
Oh, okay, yeah,
And-
we were there for. They did 5 nights at the Forum. It was a different show every night. We're at the last one.
They're really good, right?
They put on a fantastic
Wow, I got
show.
such a hard time. But what happened was I found out that Mikey Way was following me on Instagram. So I'm like, dude, you're like, he's like, yeah, me and Gerard used to watch you on Headbanger. Me and my wife want to go to the show. So we got to meet him.
Nice.
And I was like, I mean, but you would be surprised, like Tom Araya from Slayer loves Taking Back Sunday.
Mhm.
You don't know if you think that all these hardcore metal bands are just listening to metal. You're
Nope.
totally mistaken. Mark Morton from Lamb of God just listens to the Beatles all the time.
Chris Motionless from Motionless and White has seen Taylor Swift 5 times on her Eras tour. Absolutely has huge respect for her.
Yeah, musicians appreciate music
Right.
in different genres. It just depends on how they convey that. But that doesn't surprise me at all, which is great. All right, we got about 30 seconds here of Ghost, and I want to get into for our FM listeners here and wrestling marks a couple stories from your run.
I got a good wrestling story.
Yeah, good. That's good. Because somehow in the way, and again, this is the amazing takeaway of your life and journey here, is you start off basically just being a hustler, club promoter, and it led you down all these different media and entertainment outlets that not in a million years would you have been able to plan out. So welcome back to the show. It's Rock 102.1 KFMA, hanging out here with Ricky, who is again headlining tonight. 1 Foot in the Gutter Tour, 191 Toole. Doors open at 7 and show starts at 8. And he's telling stories from his entire life of all different experiences he had. And if you recall, during the boom of professional wrestling, the Monday Night Wars, Ricky actually was a member of the WCW television crew, backstage interviewer, on screen, everything else. What got you into the wrestling business?
I love wrestling.
You do? Good.
You're not going to believe this. Truly, my best friends, like he keeps on saying, "Hey, how's everything going?" Is Charles Robinson, the WWE wrestler, but I'm also
Little Ric Flair.
Little Nate. But I mean, I know Dolph Ziggler. We go to local wrestling matches. I played in Austin, and after my Austin show, there was Extreme Dwarf Wrestling, so I had to watch that. But I love wrestling. But the WCW thing happened because I knew a guy that knew Eric Bischoff, and this was right after I got arrested for beating up a DJ. Yeah. And so I didn't have a job, and they said, you should come to WCW. The problem was that everything they used me for was lame. I was like, hey, we're in spring break, and we love tough acting, tenactin. If you have athlete's foot, I'm like, make me a heel manager. I wanted to work in wrestling so bad. Yeah. So I was a dork in WCW. But, I mean, my dressing room was with Bobby the Brain and Mean Gene. It's like, come on. Yeah. But here, you want a real quick wrestling story?
Yes, please.
So we all go out afterwards, and I'm standing at the bar, and Scott Hall is there. And Scott Hall, and I asked Scott, I'm like, okay, what's the big difference between like wrestling in Japan and wrestling in America? And he's like, well, in America, they hit you like this. Hits me in the chest,
gives you a chop across the chest.
Right across the chest. He goes,
right.
And in Japan, they hit you like this. And he hit me so hard in the friggin' chest. And I'm like, wow, you're kind of like a jerk. Like he hit me really hard. He
bullied you. Yeah.
But it was Razor Ramon that hit me in the chest. So that's kind of cool.
Did it leave like a mark across your chest for like how long?
Like, I don't remember. But I'm like, it's like one of those things like, wow, that really sucks. But it was Scott Hall that hit you in the chest. Like if it was, the Nitro Girls, it wouldn't have been the same story.
In his defense, during that time was a dark period in his life. So maybe he was just messed up. And I'm sure even backstage, you've probably seen some things where it's well documented now in hindsight. Some people who were at the peak of their career personally were at their all-time low.
Yeah. They were going out all the time. There was everybody was like, we'd go to clubs and everybody was on ecstasy.
Yes, because XC was a huge thing. Like Raven and everyone, they were doing XC like almost every night, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yes,
like
yes, yes.
like 2000, 99, 2000 was a big ecstasy boom, right?
Yes.
And so these guys again, and it's another thing that the fact that you're still here and you
Raven,
survived.
it's funny that you mentioned his name because I
Yeah.
haven't seen or heard from him. That guy was really intelligent.
Yes.
Like he was really, really cool. I'd love to see him. You know, there were some people that I really, really liked, and I still watch wrestling. It's like I watch wrestling, and I mean, you know, now I got my wife in it. She's French, and she's like, you know, she's screaming and yelling, and we go to wrestling matches, and I fan out when I meet wrestlers. I mean, I love wrestling. It's because it's like it's drama. You know, I love it.
Yeah, so I want to say congratulations again for surviving through so many different eras where excess was so prevalent, so tempting. I mean, during the time with WCW, you're sober already, which is good. But and to be able to fight off that temptation because these guys were rock stars as well, and you know, during the peak where they were some of the most famous people in the country.
There's only one time that it was really, really tempting, and I was at Bristol Motor Speedway in Tennessee. And there was this guy that ran the track named Jeff Berg, cool dude. And he had this jar and he's like, this is moonshine. He's like, Dale Earnhardt drank from this jar with moonshine in it. And I was like, wow, I'd really like to get a sip of moonshine that Dale Earnhardt, but I didn't, you know, I stayed through, but I remember that was the time like, look, this is Dale Earnhardt's moonshine. You know?
Yeah.
But I didn't.
Well, you know, I mean, if it makes you feel any better, I'm sure the moonshine was so strong it killed all germs. So you wouldn't even have been swapping DNA at that point. You know, it's just
Dale Earnhardt. Come on.
Yeah, I know. It's legendary.
But to have that story,
Right,
just
right,
like
right,
I had his moonshine.
It's weird the paths, and I say this in my show. You never know when you're going to have the best time in your life, and sometimes really bad stuff leads you into that good stuff, and you never know where you're going to end up because sometimes these bad things ended up leading you to really, really good things that wouldn't have happened if you didn't experience that bad thing. And that's one of the sort of messages that I hope people take away from my show.
Oh, I'm sure they would. And again, it's a story of ultimate ups and downs, a story of survival, a story of making it in several different fields. And, you know, while still being true to yourself, it's very impressive and inspiring. And I know it's going to be entertaining and funny, too. We have a couple more minutes with Riki, and then I'll let you go take a nap and get ready for your show. 191 Toole. That is going tonight. Doors open at 7. Show starts at 8. 191toole.com. for all that ticket information. We'll keep the conversation moving on the broadcast and wrap things up after these words. It's Rock 102.1 KFMA. Clear. All right. And then back on the podcast. As simple as that. What other, you know, while you're back there, you saw like at the WCW run, it was during their peak, but then also towards the tail end of
I worked the very last WCW show. The very last WCW show
in Panama Beach or whatever.
Yes. And I was backstage interviewing every single wrestler before they went. I mean, I interviewed everybody.
Oh, so then they finally gave you the spotlight to do that, right?
It was online, and nobody was online then. So it was online before there was online.
Yeah.
And that was the show that, you know, they told everybody, look, Vince is taking over WCW and we're getting rid of WCW. And I think Vince
Shane shows up.
Yeah. And it was even in the storyline. So it was like, wow, like it was pretty.
It was the overall feeling. I mean, where people just.
Everybody was terrified because nobody knew, you know, if they were going to have contracts, were they going to go over to which was WWF still, I think at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And nobody knew if they were going to go over there or not, or if it was like, wow, what am I going to do? And it's tough. And, you know, the similarities between wrestling and rock and roll are there. It's the sex, drugs, rock and roll. And one day you might have a hit record and the next day you're like, whatever happened to?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. What band were you a fan of during your era that you felt like could have been bigger than they were, or like had that hit and disappeared and you kind of wish they were Guns N' Roses level, or do you have any of those?
There's a lot of bands, and I know that I'll get in the car and forget. I mean, there was one band that really wasn't of my era that I always thought was great, was the Super Suckers. I think they were just a great rock and roll band. Yeah. But in the 80s music, there was a band called the London Choir Boys that sounded a lot like Rod Stewart and Faces. I always thought they would have made it big. There's a lot of bands that I just can't think of that for some reason they never made it big, and I don't know why.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just the magic formula, right? And you can't even put your finger on it.
Never
It's,
know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you just never know. So it's a little bit of luck, it's a little bit of talent, a little bit of everything. Is there anyone that you've interacted with, like celebrity musicians and stuff that you just can't stand? You still have beef with to this day, or were you able to squash all your beefs? Because again, you've been in jail, for beating people up and getting into fights and having a strong will and opinion. So.
She's looking at you like I already know the answer to this.
She does. She does, because this guy's such a kook. But I'm not going to say his name because I don't know. He's like a rock star from the 80s. It's part of our genre. And we just recently had like some beef. And it's just like, dude, I don't even want to mention you're just such a dork.
Right.
He probably knows who I'm. If he hears this, he knows I'm talking about him. But I'm not even going to say. But the last words I said to him, I'm like, oh, now he'll know if he hears this, because they're very big in this area. He said, okay, we're not friends anymore. I'm like, I don't care. And do not ever get in my face. My last words with him is like, do not ever get in my face, because I don't want to talk
Try to
about
get in your
stupid.
face. Yeah,
It's stupid.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
I like everybody. I mean, in my life right now, if there's somebody that I don't like, you don't exist in my life. And I'd rather talk to people. And I don't care if you're a donut fryer or in a band, if you're a good person, we're going to hang out. I don't care what people do anymore.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, I guess that comes with maturity. And when you went to jail, were you in LA County?
The first time, it's always only been like a day or two.
Okay,
I was
so
never
you
in
lucked out.
prison. No,
Yeah.
I remember telling my mom, I'm like, Mom, everybody's been to jail. She's like, no, Ricky, everybody hasn't been to jail. I got, they took me down in LA. It was like in West LA. I know I was held for drunk driving in West Hollywood, but it was in LA. It wasn't downtown LA. And I was only there like overnight. It wasn't like,
The drunk tank, basically.
Yeah, kind of, but I wasn't drunk.
Yeah.
Like
but
and
they
that
still
just
call
goes
it
to
the
say,
drunk
it's like,
tank.
just because you're sober doesn't mean you're not messed up. It's like you still have all these inner demons that show themselves once in a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So only a couple of one night stands in jail and
Yes.
and like fines and stuff. Nothing like probo or any court system.
It was nobody would hire me for a while, and it led to being completely, really, really, really broke.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was
Who was this radio DJ you beat up?
with some dorky talk radio. It was two guys. It was a radio team in Los Angeles, and I
Was it a
doing-
morning show or
No, they were like an afternoon show, and they were just these
those guys are the
dorks.
worst.
They were just dorks, and I was actually on the afternoon, and they were on after me. I did afternoon drive on a talk radio station in LA. I had a show called the Triple R, and then these guys started saying all this mean stuff. I mean, they kept on doing it, and then they said stuff about a girl I was dating, and then I just went to the station. I beat the hell out of the guy, and I went to jail and lost my job.
Oh wow.
Mm.
Yeah, but I mean, they crossed the line and they made it personal. And
Right.
it
But you
was-
don't do that kind of stuff. You gotta,
Yeah.
you gotta brush it off and say it's just words. They're pathetic.
Yeah.
And but I learned my lesson. If I didn't get arrested and lose everything, I wouldn't be as grateful I am to now live in a house and have a great life at home.
Yeah. Now, I mean, you grew up in Los Angeles, of course, which is a beautiful country. And now you're in South Carolina. Yeah. So
North Carolina,
right?
Big difference.
Yeah.
I think there is.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you love about living in North Carolina and the difference between, obviously California and North
Well,
Carolina?
living in Hollywood, I was wondering if there was going to be a place that I could park my motorcycle in
Mhm.
my garage, because it was so expensive to live in a small place. And in North Carolina, I walk to my boat slip.
Oh yeah, you're right there on the
How does
ocean,
that-
huh?
How does that say? And
Yeah.
it's beautiful. I'm right by the Blue Ridge Parkway. I love the food.
Mm.
I love the people are nice there. I don't talk politics with my neighbors,
Yeah.
but I have.
Neither do I.
Yeah, but I have a good time. I like living in North Carolina, and it was funny. Me and my wife were talking like, what if we won this lotto? Where would you live? And she's like, I just want to live in Mooresville, North Carolina. I mean, of course, we have a house as big as half of Mooresville,
Right,
but,
right.
Yeah.
but it's just a nice area, and we've got some good friends there, and we have a lake, and I could go ride my motorcycle on the Blue Ridge Parkway,
Oh,
and
it's gorgeous
and
there.
there's good things.
Yeah, what brought you there? Was it friends that you knew there?
No,
and
I
then-
was eventually, because I was working NASCAR, I would go there a couple times, and at that time, like, people were buying like killer houses for like, in the twos.
Yeah.
And I was
Right.
like, wow. And then I rented a house for a year, and then I just fell in love with it. And then Leah came to live with me, and she fell in love with it. And we're like, let's buy a house and stay here for a while. So it worked really, really good.
Yeah, nice. It's amazing how sometimes your home finds you in a way and just
Yeah,
kind of pulls you
absolutely.
there.
If you would have told me back then you're going to live in North Carolina, I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Of all places, North Carolina? But it's like, I'm proud to live in North Carolina. I'm not allowed to call myself Southern yet. But
Yeah, you don't have a twang or any accent. No
no.
words did you slip up at all.
No.
And then Leah, did your beautiful wife, did you guys open up a tattoo shop or, do any of that?
Oh no, I work out of a really, really cool studio, and I got like my own room out of the place, and
Nice.
it's great.
It's real quick, funny story about how things work out. I was hired as the host of Ink Master.
Yeah.
And then right before I would start to work, I didn't get the job and I was devastated. But then I ended up meeting a girl that was on season 1 of Ink Master.
Yeah.
And we ended up getting married. So if I would have gotten that job hosting, I wouldn't have been married to Leah. So
Well, you never know. You might have met her quicker. And she,
but she wouldn't have.
No,
I mean,
we would not.
I would have.
No. I don't mix work.
I would have probably tried to hook up with her if she was a contestant, but she wouldn't have hooked up with me as the host. So
yeah, it wouldn't have been professional. I think
Yes.
maybe it'd be in your contract. You're not allowed to bang the contestants.
no, probably so. And but it's. I mean, it doesn't suck having a wife that's like one of the best tattoo artists. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, did you
Yeah.
have any pieces from her on you?
Yeah, I have that. I have. What are some of the? She did all my Motorhead tattoos.
Leah, what's your favorite tattoo
This
that
one.
you put on
Which
him?
one? Oh, my checker flag.
Oh, the checker
Yeah.
flags. You did that? You did the checker flags on his neck?
Yeah,
But
I
she
did a
does like,
checker
I mean,
flag.
to say she does like very
The first
simple
tattoo
kind
I
of
did was-
traditional stuff on me because I don't have much space. But
Yeah.
the stuff she does is like she specializes in black and gray, and she's been on. I'm sorry to talk about you when you're right here, but she's been on the cover of all the tattoo magazines, and she's like really good at it.
Yeah,
That's
very
amazing.
talented and beautiful. Well, it's nice to meet you as well. And, congratulations on this tour, Ricky. I'm very excited that you came to town. Excited about your show at the Marquee in Tempe the next day. But tonight, the show starts at 8. Doors open at 7. And you can get those tickets at 191.com, 191toole.com. I already forgot that.
I think it's TOOLE.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Toole.
And, Ricky, we're going to continue to follow your exploits. We wish you all the best.
Thank
We
you
can't
so
wait
much.
to read the potential book that might come out because I think that's
I
definitely
can't wait to write the potential book.
and thank you guys so much. All right.
Thank
For the
you.
rest of you, we'll be back tomorrow with those tickets for Incubus. We'll see you tonight at 191 Toole. Till then, Robin Nash is up next. Enjoy the rest of your day. Drive safe, ride safe, and as always, rock local. Later.
When you wish
was
upon
good.
a side of beef,
Flies by, right?
you will
Yeah.
come and end to all your grief.
Or if you'd like to
But if you've been mean or kind of bad, I